Hello, everyone. I am very glad to be able to share a sermon that Pastor Andrew Fairfield provided us yesterday at our Zoom worship time. And so I'm recording it in this so that you might be able to hear it as well. In preparation, you can read Mark 1:29 to 39 and Isaiah 40:21 to 31. I pray that Andrew's words will be a blessing to you to get strong patience, strong faith. I'm going to do a little sharing of the screen now. I am so very thankful, Andrew, that you've been willing to join us today and to share your word as you hear it through Isaiah. Thank you for joining us. Andrew is the pastor at Christiansburg Mennonite Fellowship in Christiansburg, obviously, and he's been there. Is it in the third year, Andrew? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And he grew up in the Harrisonburg, Bridgewater area and has known my older son, and we have a connection through Eastern Mennonite School, the high school. And then he went off to seek his fortune with MCC and in missions, and was 3 years in China before coming back, kind of seminary, and then entering the pastorate. We welcome you, Andrew. Thank you for being here to share the gospel with us. I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, James, for that kind introduction. And all of you who are here with us this morning, it's good to hear your voices, Darren and John, and glad to see that you're here too, Agnes. Let me start with a reading from the Gospel of Mark, chapter 1, verses 29 to 39. As soon as they left the synagogue, they entered the house of Simon and Andrew with James and John. Now, Simon's mother-in-law was in bed with a fever, and they told him about her at once. He came and took her by the hand and lifted her up. Then the fever left her, and she began to serve them. That evening at sundown, they brought to him all who were sick or possessed with demons, and the whole city was gathered around the door. And he cured many who were sick with various diseases and cast out many demons, and he would not permit the demons to speak, because they knew him. In the morning, while it was still very dark, he got up and went to a deserted place, and there he prayed. And Simon and his companions hunted for him. And when they found him, they said to him, "Everyone is searching for you." He answered, "Let us go on to the neighboring town, so that I may proclaim the message there also, for that is what I came out to do." And he went throughout Galilee, proclaiming the message in their synagogues and casting out demons. Today, I'd like to talk about the power of patience. Power of patience to bring victory. Patience is something we've all needed a lot of these days. And to be clear, just from the start, I'm not talking about lazy patience. Not the kind that sits on its duff alone, twiddling its thumbs, watching the clock, and just waiting passively for something to happen. Just because God promised to fight battles for the children of Israel doesn't mean they all sat around their homes saying, "Go get them, boss." Gideon still had to gather his torches and clay pots for God's plan to get the Midianite army to attack itself. And Joshua and all the people of Israel still had to march around Jericho, blowing their horns and shouting at the top of their lungs. God would fight their battles, but they were working hard and had to have patience. They had to keep going, hold on, even though they didn't understand exactly how God's plan was going to work out. And they had to do it together. That's the patience I'm talking about. The patience of the person who holds to something of high value, shoulder to shoulder with others of like mind. It's something even the world can understand in its limited way. It's the patience of a spearman who must hold the line, must be steadfast. Ancient battlefields had very little of the leaping and dashing about you might have seen in Hollywood productions. They were much more like a long, slow shoving match between two walls of men with shields and spears, pushing and sweating for hours. Battles aren't fought that way anymore, but the world still understands the value of that kind of patience, though, once again, in a limited sort of way. It's the patience of an investor who has put all their money into a company, and as long as that investor isn't going it alone, as long as there are others who all have that same patience together, the stock goes up and everybody gets rich. You may have seen people talking about the power of this kind of patience just this week in the news, when a bunch of people on the internet, on a website called Reddit, decided to band together and all invest in the same stock. Basically, some big fish financial companies, hedge funds, bet that this chain of stores called GameStop would fail and its stock would go down. Well, people on the internet decided to take that bet by all buying in together, and the price went from about $20 a month ago to 300 some. It was crazy. All over the news, the power of all these individual small-time investors banded together, holding each other, encouraging each other to hold on to their stocks, to hold the line. Now, the price today has come back to something more normal, and I, for one, am glad that I never got mixed up in the mess. But my point is this: it's not just the ancient world with their lines of spearmen that understand the power of a certain kind of patience. Not a lazy patience, but the patience of a group of people who hold to something precious together. Here's the crazy thing. The world believes in the power of patience to win battles and to make the rich richer, but it doesn't believe in the power of patience to heal the brokenhearted, to help the oppressed, to feed the hungry. Too often here in America, we say, no, those people can't hold the line. That's settling for the status quo. No, those people can't be patient. Patience is for the healthy, the powerful, and the rich. No, these people need to pull themselves up by their bootstraps. They need to feel stressed out and miserable every waking moment of their days. Otherwise, they deserve the bad things that are happening to them. Have you ever felt miserable, cast down, hurt, alone, and heard that voice from our culture saying, you need to fix this? It's up to you to have a 100% correct plan and be 100% active about it every minute, every day. And by the way, it's up to you and nobody else, and you need to look after yourself because you're all alone in that. Well, this morning, I'd like us all to hear the voice of Christ speaking peace into our souls. We believe in a God who heals, a God who fights our battles for us. And as long as we hold to that treasure together, as long as we Christians can stand shoulder to shoulder and have the blessed patience to let the Lord work healing in our lives, as long as we seek first the kingdom of God, which is the loving community where every single person is valued, then all will be well. Good things will come that we never even expect. The pains and terrors of life will no longer hold such power over us, and we will be free. In the passage I just read from Mark today, Jesus came healing the sick. Can you imagine what it would have been like to be chronically ill 2,000 years ago in Galilee? To be blind from birth, or bleeding, or in pain? These things are difficult enough by themselves. But then we also know that at that time, people who suffered were blamed for their own suffering. People thought they must have done something wrong, something to deserve it. They understood disease to be caused by unclean spirits, and they feared those spirits, stayed as far away from them as they could. Imagine having your difficulty and discomfort turned into true misery and loneliness. Imagine a physical pain turned into a deep emotional pain by a world that doesn't care, a world that would rather see you just give up. Maybe some of us don't have to imagine that hard. Maybe some of us have felt that same way in the world today. We've got to hold on. We have a God who, as we read in Psalm 147, heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds, who is plenty powerful all on his lonesome to do what needs to be done, and who does not delight in the strength of the horse or pleasure in the speed of a runner, but who takes pleasure in those who fear him, in those who hope in his steadfast love. We have a healer who is coming. We just have to hold to our patience together. Jesus is coming, house by house, street by street, town by town through Galilee. Jesus isn't afraid of any unclean spirit. Jesus loves and sees the worth of every person, no matter their condition. And more than that, Jesus has a plan. Hold here, he says. Hold to the love I have taught you. Hold to the self-worth that kept you alive when the world hated you. Hold to the Lord who created you. These are the orders from our battle leader to stand our ground. This is the hot tip from our investment advisor. Put your treasure here. Invest everything in the following. Love your God, love your neighbor. Hold that love together and be patient. When we have that special kind of patience, the hard-working patience that stakes its claim, that refuses to budge, that stands together against all comers, Jesus promises us victory. God gives power to the weak. Those who wait on the Lord will mount up on the wings of eagle. We Christians haven't always been up to the task. How often have we turned against each other instead of standing shoulder to shoulder? How often have we blamed people for their afflictions? How often have we ignored those who we thought of as powerless and poor? But just because we have failed some days is no excuse to fail today. Each Sunday is a rallying cry. Come back to the line. Come back to Jesus. Come back together at the foot of the cross. It's okay to be eager for things to change, and it's okay to lament how hard things are now, but don't let that break your resolve. We can ask how long, but don't let that become I'm done. We are under so much pressure from the world to give up, to throw up our hands and say, well, at least I got mine, and disengage, to stop listening, to stop caring, to say, well, they don't care about me, so why should I care about them? It's only natural, right? That we curl up and cover our hurts and harden our hearts. But the heart of Jesus is always breaking for the world. His arms are always spread wide in sacrifice for us in the welcoming embrace of a hug. If your heart is sore looking at the hurt and suffering in this world, if your heart is sore from the burden of hurt and suffering in your own life, then you're doing it right. Holding on isn't easy, and it isn't risk-free. We can get tired, we can get hurt. God will give us rest, for sure, but then God expects us to stand up, step up, and dig back in again. When people think it's funny to be mean, we don't. And that can make us unpopular. When people think some kinds of folks are more important than other kinds, we don't. And in the past, that's even landed people in jail. But holding together works. If you want to keep a stock's price high, everybody needs to hold their shares. If you want to win a battle, everybody needs to hold their feet. I want to win this battle. I want to obey my captain, my Christ, who has said we don't have to be content with sin and death anymore. I want to hold. A Christianity that holds together to the Lord and to one another, saying, we will not give up on even one, saying, We will not give up on our love and our care for everybody. That Christianity will shape the world. That patience will bring us victory.
It was at that point that we opened up the sermon time for discussion. What did Andrew's words mean to you? And what does it mean not to have a lazy patience, a lazy faith, but an active one, a strong one that's able to get back up? I pray that Andrew's words can be encouraging to you this week, and that as we face this pandemic, we can know that the Lord is with us, and we will not fail because He will not fail. May the Lord bless your hearts. Bye-bye for now.